Unfortunately, Mayor Brian Reeves has been delayed at the airport, so he's on his way in. He may make it in time, he may not. But he drafted something, and I'd like to read on behalf of him some words of tribute to Rose Yates. Our village lost a dear friend on December 30th. Tonight, we pay special tribute to Rose Yates. Rose Yates began her career with the Village of Lemont in September of 1985 as a water bill collector. In 1992, Rose became the first executive assistant working with 4 mayors, 3 village administrators, and 1 village clerk before her retirement in 2011. That's great.
Yeah, that's nice.
For the 26 years she served her community, she always gave more than what was required of her, kept an eye on what was best for the community, and was an advocate for her countless residents. As a Lemont native, her passion for her community was evident through her involvement in countless organizations and activities. She always was someone you could count on. Her passion for helping those less fortunate was endless, as she gave so much of herself to make life better for others. To encompass everything she did, it would nearly be impossible, but I'd like to mention a few things. So Rose was a U.S. Peace Corps volunteer. She sang in St. Patrick's Choir since 5th grade and helped with their golf outing. Since the late 1990s, she was an active member of the Lemont Area Historical Society. She held a board seat since 2000. For her tireless work, she was gifted a life membership in 2011. In 2000, Rose and members of the Historical Society formed an ad hoc committee to designate the downtown of Lemont as a historic district. An ordinance was passed and adopted on February 12, 2001, and the Historic Preservation Commission was formed. Rose was appointed to the Historic Preservation Committee in 2013 and worked passionately to preserve our historic buildings and homes. The Lemont Area Chamber of Commerce chose Rose for Citizen of the Year in 2002. She was a Lemont Quarryman, vintage baseball volunteer, and devoted fan. The team is dedicating their 2017 season to Rose and will honor her with adding a rose patch to their shirts. How nice. Rose loved the St. Patrick's Day Parade and helped in planning it for many years. She was a judge for the soda bread contest and was crowned as honorary queen in 2012. Since its inception, Rose was the organizer of the Mayor's Drive for Charity and volunteered to help with the event even after her retirement. Rose supported the Art and Culture Commission and was a Lemont Center for the Arts volunteer since its inception in 2004. She was chosen as Grand Marshal of the Kipita Day Parade in 2008 by the Lemont JCs. As a member on the executive board for the Hope and Friendship Foundation since its 2012 inception. As secretary, she not only led meetings, but other board members looked to her for leadership of formalities of voting, bylaws, and overall professional function. Rose was present at almost every event, whether it was helping young girls select a prom dress, sorting winter clothing, making sack lunches for our seniors and our homeless shelters, collecting for Tag Day, or running the 50-50 raffles at events. With her passion for the village came a spark. As you can bet, she stood up for whatever she believed was right and fought to change the wrongs. The passing of Rose has left many holes in our village that will be hard to fill. She will never be forgotten for all she gave. And with this, I, Brian K. Reeves, Mayor of Lemont, on behalf of the village board and staff, dedicate the streets of Illinois and Lemont as Rose Yates Way. The one on display right here on the table is for the Lemont Historical Society to display in the museum. So we'll let you take that tonight. We will be putting another one up in the springtime at that intersection in her honor. In addition, come spring, we will honor her forever at our village hall with a bronze plaque depicting her face as the face of Lemont, mounted on the outside of our limestone building. She'll be with us forever. Mayor Joe Forsley, former Mayor Joe Forsley, wasn't able to attend tonight, so he sent a brief note also, and I'd like to read that on his behalf. Rose Yates was dedicated, helpful, enthusiastic, and always did an excellent job with anything you gave her. Whatever the project was, you could be assured it would be done correctly, on time, and with lots of pride. Rose was always very instrumental in implementing current technology, processes, and procedures. Most of all, she was an all-around terrific person, and she will be greatly missed. Tonight, we also have some other guests that would like to speak on behalf of Rose, for Rose. And first, I'd like to call up former Chief Kevin Shaughnessy.
Thank you, sir. I've already been warned by several of the guests here not to talk too long. So little do they know that now in retirement, I'm a man of few words. So I could not pass this opportunity by to speak about a woman who made a big mark in my life. It's hard to put into words how much that woman meant to me. I came here as an outsider to be the chief of police, and I was, the first day in the office, met Mayor Piazza, Gary Holmes, a few other people, and I had a few questions about what the town was about, a few particular items, and I was told to go see Rose Yates. So, okay, I went over to see Rose Yates, and I quickly learned one thing. I respect Mayor Piazza, I work for the guy, but I know that she's running the show, not him. And I know he'd admit it. And I can't speak for Mayor Forsley or Mayor Kwasniewski or Mayor Reeves, but every day that Rose came to work, she was running the show. And so, you know, tonight, I wanted to share that there was only one Rose Yates. There's not going to be another Rose Yates. I know in my lifetime I'm not going to meet any more. That was it. And I recognize that. And I'd like everybody to know that. And I understand that, I don't know if this, I used to kid when I was in the audience here. Does anybody ever watch these board meetings? I'm hoping tonight that a lot of people are watching. And when they hear the name Rose Yates, they're going to know of somebody extremely special in life. I've met all kinds of people, good and bad. And again, there were none other like Rose. So just a few things that Mayor Reeves touched on in his report about the #1 quality that Rose had that I wish every one of us would have. The world would be a great place if everybody had passion for anything. Doesn't matter what. But Rose had a passion. She had a passion for her family. She had a passion for her friends. And she had a passion for the village of Lemont, like none other. There are some good salesmen for our town. If it was up to me, that water tower by State Street would have Rose's picture on it, because that's how much she means to town and has meant to town, and will never be replaced. You can find people who come close maybe, but you're not going to find another Rose Yates. One thing before I forget, so how did I learn about Village of Lemont? I asked and talked to Rose a lot, but she steered me to the #1 reference material that the village has, and I know there's a few models of this, but it's the Lemont 125th Anniversary History Book for the Village of Lemont. Now, I don't want to question what village employee ordered these way back when, but they must have ordered about 500,000 of them because there's still 2,000 of them left, according to George. So I would challenge every resident of the Village of Lemont, first, to buy this book in memory of Rose Yates, okay? Because her passion, even though I looked, and actually she's got 2 listings here. One's a picture of her being on the committee, and then one's about the kids' baseball, and she was somehow involved in that. But this book talks about the character of what Rose Yates was. Okay, so I would just say, hey, I think I got 4 copies of this, and I know I paid for 3 of them. I asked Rose if I could get a few more for free, but she goes, Chief, you got to pay just like everybody else. So this book, Lemont 125th Anniversary, Linda has it, and I challenge everybody to buy it in her honor. And even if you're not from Lemont, you want to learn about the greatest town in America with the greatest resident of all time, Rose Yates, buy that book. The St. Patrick's Day Parade was really near and dear to me. I don't know why, but it is and it was. Rose called me one day and she goes, hey, Chief, there's a movement afoot to get rid of the parade. I think times were tough. The economy was sinking. And she goes, we can't have that, Chief. And I said, Rose, you're right. So in my little way, of course, I would do what I could do. But Rose Yates carried the water on that. And to this day, we have the St. Patrick's Day Parade, and I'm sure we will for all time to come, if for nothing else, because of Rose. She did ask me to judge the Irish soda bread competition for the St. Patrick's Day celebration. And I didn't have the heart to tell Rose that I don't like Irish soda bread. I don't eat raisins. So I said, oh, I'd be glad to, Rose. Would my wife be able to come along? So she said, sure. So my wife actually was the judge. I was just filling my name in on it. But, you know, Rose, even though she was a judge also, it was important to her to continue tradition. I think that's what Lemont is based on, tradition. One thing I'll always remember Rose for is that in dealing with our residents, you know, as the chief, I know Chief Mayton and myself, we see the good and bad in everybody. But the good always seems to get the needed attention, or the good we take for granted, but the ones that are disgruntled, they get a lot of attention. And after giving them a lot of attention, you feel that, geez, there's not a whole lot more I can do, and we sort of leave our office early, or we don't answer the phone, we go on vacation. Well, I'll tell you what, every one of the individuals in this town, there's not a whole lot, who can never be satisfied, always found the ear of Rose Yates. And she would talk to them for long periods of time. She wouldn't give them 5 minutes, 2 minutes. She would let them talk as long as they like. I mean, too many people in life that are going to do that and do it with sincerity. She didn't just pay them lip service. She did it from the heart to try to help. That's what Rose Yates was all about. The choir, she told me she sang in the choir, and, you know, I went to church but never had a mass where the choir was until recently, and I've seen the choir, and they're great. But I used to attend church in my town where I lived at the time. But then at Christmas time, there's the choir going around downtown Lemont, at all the different places, singing Christmas carols. And I was truly impressed. And Rose Yates, if she wore a size 4 shoe, I don't really know how small shoes could be. There's nobody that has a bigger footprint in this town than Rose Yates. So I could go on and on. You know, I love the lady. I miss her dearly. I know that she's saying, hey, Chief, knock it off. You've talked way too long. Any accolades she gets, she doesn't want, but I will say one thing, whatever accolades we give her will never be enough. So I love you, Rose. I know you hear me. God bless you.
Thanks, Chief. Can we get former Mayor Rick Kwasniewski?
Thank you, Paul. For the record, I think Barb Bushman actually ordered those books, so so I think she's really responsible for making sure they all get sold. You know, what else can we say about Rose? Obviously, Mayor Reeves had said pretty much everything that she volunteered for. She was the Village of Lemont. And not all village employees do that. A lot of them don't have the time. She made the time to be part of Lemont. And she lived it and breathed it, and I think everybody appreciated that. I can tell you right now, to work through and work with 4 mayors we've all got egos, we've all got the greatest ideas, and she would more than set us straight when we didn't have the right ideas. I can tell you numerous times after board meetings, the day after, she would say to me, "Mayor, you shouldn't have said that," or "Mayor, you shouldn't do this." And, you know, sometimes I would listen to her, but a lot of times I didn't, and then sure enough, there'd be issues with what I said or what I did. So she wasn't afraid to step up and do that, and I agree. She was the boss. I mean, she pulled everything together. Yes, she did write my newsletters, everyone. I would render to say she probably has written most people's newsletters. But we certainly love her and miss her. You know, I can tell you right now, she was great dealing with constituents. You know, during my time period, there was a lot of people who, you know, were up in arms a little bit about some developments that were happening or whatever the case may be. She would field phone calls and deal with them in a very professional manner and treat people with respect. And I can tell you right now, she'd watch these board meetings. Somebody said, does anybody really watch the board meetings? She would do that. The reason why I know that is because if we had someone up here with an issue or a concern or whatever, the very next morning she would either call me, or if I'd stop in, she would have the answer for that person if we didn't have it at that board meeting. And I can tell you right now, the other thing is, if we got phone calls as a mayor, which you know, sometimes you get a lot more than you do, depending on what's happening or depending on what's out there, she would deal with it. She'd call Ralph Pakula, even when Ralph worked he wasn't in his current position, but she'd call and make sure that something got handled. And by the time it got to me, it was already solved. And she would say, "Oh, I already called Public Works. I already called the citizen back, but you can call him back too." So she did her job and then some. I'm gonna miss her. I'm gonna miss her seeing her on the streets. You know, not every day, but every event that was out there, she would be there. She went through numerous moves, you know, at the village. When she started, I was a village trustee. We were downstairs in the little library, or the other half of the library. The library was on this side of the building downstairs, and the boardroom was on the other side. This was a big courtroom, and she would be in the front office with, I think, 3 or 4 other people, and right next to there were the jail cells. So when we decided to remodel this village hall, everybody was uprooted, but she really controlled everything. We all moved everybody to the high school, and I know, obviously, you know, this was done again, but you know, she always looked at the brighter side, and she always told everybody that. One last story, and we were talking about the Historical Society. She loved the Village of Lemont. She loved the history of the Village of Lemont, and she convinced me, along with Barb Bushman, to create the Historical Commission and create the historical ordinance. And it was because she loved the Village of Lemont, she loved the downtown, and she's shown that, obviously, up until her passing, and I think is still going to be thinking about that to this day. So we wish her family the best, and we know we're going to miss her. You guys miss her. We love her, and there will never be another Rose Yates. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. This time I'd like to call former Mayor John Piazza.
Well, I'm just going to reiterate a lot of what was already said here tonight, if I can get my notes right here. It's been a long time since I've been in this boardroom. It seems like it's been forever. Actually, I can honestly say I don't miss it that much. But, I miss the people, but it's crazy how fast times go. Rose was, you know, when I first came into office, she was just unbelievable. You know, when we had a couple subdivisions going on that were controversial to some degree. Now that they're built, they're really not. But you know, it was funny because she'd always put the newspaper clippings in, you know, your in bin and stuff. So I'm like, hey, they're highlighting all this kind of information. I'm like, what's the deal, So Peter Coolis, he was a trustee at the time, says, hey, who's, putting all this propaganda in our mailboxes and stuff? So I'm asking Rose, I said, Rose, what's going on here? We've got all these newsletters and or newspaper articles and stuff, talking about the controversies on a couple subdivisions. So I just want to keep everybody apprised of what's going on. So I really felt bad about it because it was just, doing her daily job, taking care of business like she always did. Rose was just the best person that you could ever imagine to have in the office. She was more than an executive assistant. No, she was an administrator, an extraordinary administrator. She was able to get through the daily business, make sure that we had a village administrator and an assistant village administrator after that. But I know Gary, himself would admit that he would have been a lost soul without Rose. She always made sure that we were always prepared. I'd never go into a meeting blind and uninformed. Always had the details, and a lot of times she gave me the inside information that you needed to know when you were in our position. She was a confidant. She had the pulse of the community, like Mayor Kwasniewski and Chief mentioned before. There'd be people coming in, and obviously she'd be the first line of defense. When somebody was unhappy, and 99 times out of 100, she would take care of it. And then she'd get this, the one person or the one individual to say, Mayor, you should probably talk to this individual. And, you do your job. You'd sit there, listen to them. Even if you couldn't help them or, resolve their problem, you gave them your ear. And, I learned a lot, about dealing with people from Rose, because she always treated people with dignity and respect. I don't think anybody that ever talked to her would come away saying that they felt that they weren't given the time of day, or that she didn't, understand them, or she didn't try and connect with them. She had, real gift for that. And Rose had her opinion too. She wouldn't share it too often, unless you really, wanted to ask her and were soliciting it. Although she did give me the side eye when I hired a certain chief of police that just gave me talk. It took a while, but Rose really warmed up the chief. And after about 9 years, she really loved him. But seriously, Rose welcomed everybody, and anybody that we brought in, she was the first one that you would send the person to, so they could get schooled on what's going on in the village and understand how this community works. And as I was here for 8 years, and as we grew, our relationship grew. We became more than just mayor and executive assistant. We became friends. We had a mutual respect for each other. And I think it was really built around the fact that she mentored me in this, that she really loved Lemont and wanted to see Lemont succeed, and that should be the first and primary priority of anybody that was holding office. And the difference between her and everybody else, a lot of communities, that she actually got involved, she was engaged in the community, made things happen, and Lemont is much better off for Rose. It's safe to say that she spent the better part of her adult life serving the village. She actually wrote the book, one of the writers on the book on Lemont, Barb. And all she wanted was everybody to experience all that was good about Lemont and the history of Lemont. So it was, she loved talking about the history of Lemont, and I actually read the book too, Chief, so I'll read it to you later on. But Rose was really just a good friend too. She was genuinely concerned. She'd always ask about Karen, my wife, and how the boys were doing. It wasn't just one of those brief conversations, hey, how are the kids, and et cetera, and then, walk on. She really, was an individual that, listened. And not many people are good listeners, but she was a great listener, and she wanted to, truly be engaged in your family and understand how, making sure that the kids are doing well and that your wife's doing well. So she was just the best overall. all I can really say, you know, is that she was a dignified individual, a dignified woman. She was the consummate professional, and the finest ambassador that Lemont could ever ask for. So we will miss you dearly, Rose. So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
I want to give my sincere apologies to the Yates family for not being able to be here on a timely fashion tonight. I will say my wife did everything possible to get me here as quick as possible and as safely as possible. She probably could have done just a little bit. No, I'm just joking. She could have. You know, when you think about people that'll be around forever, Rose Yates was one of them. And she was an extremely important and special lady to me, from being a trustee, then becoming mayor. And I know that transition was not one that she was thinking about doing. She didn't know if she wanted to train another mayor. And that's what she did. That's what her job was. And there's a very select few people that when you're called mayor, it means something, and it meant something to me. And she definitely was one of them. And to hear the news and be out of town again for just being on vacation and not be back for that again, it was devastating. And she will be truly missed. We will always have the memories of all the things that she's done. I think there's no fitter tribute to her than to have the honorary sign that we have on the road in front of the Historical Society, because that, you know, her passion and the belief in this town was what rubbed off on all of us. You know, a few big snowstorms or power outages or whatever it didn't matter. She'd call Ralph on the phone. Ralph would drive the snowplow there, pick her up, and she would want to be at Village Hall. No matter if there was 28 inches of snow on the ground, she was here to answer questions for people in town. I know. And she was the true keeper of everything that we had. And I know she's done a fabulous job passing information on, and we will always have fond memories of Rose. So again, we'll keep the Yates family in our hearts and our prayers, and we thank her for all that she's ever done for us. So with that, we have no executive session tonight, so we will move to adjourn.
So moved.
Made by trustee Childakis, second by trustee Blatzer. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
So you have to ask Jeff. I know you signed.